Hello, and welcome to Coding Cave. My name is Andre,
And my name is Chris.
and today Chris will be going over the Elm Architecture.
So, after we have gone over the basics of the core language and we know how to use the core types and to fool around with strings and numbers, many of you are probably asking, how do you build an actual website? Well, for that, we'll open up our favorite code editor, Emacs, and see what we can do. And of course, it opens to my other screen. But here we are. So the first thing you should be thinking of when you start an Elm project is where is it going to live? So I'm going to create a folder and my local directory, and I'm going to call it Elm Fun. And that didn't create a folder. That actually created a file. I'm going to open up my terminal and create a folder called Elm Fun. I'm going to cd into that terminal or change directory. And from here, if you've already followed our installation steps, you should have the Elm command line tool installed on your computer. And with that, you can do Elm space init. Now this asks you if you would like to create all things necessary to start an Elm project. And I think the answer is yes. So that gave us a couple of things. If we ls, we see an elm.json file has been created in that directory, and a empty source file has been created in that directory. So I'm going to go ahead and create a file inside of our empty source file called main.elm. I can do that by using touch. There are a bunch of other ways of doing this, but this is the quickest for me. Now I'm going to open up that file, elm-fun, source/main. I'm doing all this with the power of doing Emacs, if you're curious. So we have an empty file open. And the first thing that we need in an Elm file is every Elm file needs to be an Elm module. In order to do that, we write module in the name of the module, which in this case is going to be main. And we tell Elm what this module exposes. So what functions or values you are allowed to import from this module. For right now, we'll use two dots to say we're importing everything from this module. Now, when when Elm is looking to run your Elm project, it's looking for a function called main. And this function is usually utilizes a thing called browser. And this is how Elm communicates to your browser. And for right now, when you're starting out, you want to start with the browser sandbox. Browser sandbox takes a record that has a view, a update function for update, and an init I use to start your model. So this is going to give us some errors right now because Elm doesn't know what this browser thing is. You have to import that. So if we import browser, and if I spell browser correctly, we should start to see some of these errors go away. I think it's two dots. Okay. So when we're talking about the Elm architecture, we're talking about three different things. We're talking about things that you can see, we're talking about data, and then we're talking about actions you can take. So in our fictional application that we're creating for fun, let's say you have the action of pressing a button. So let's create a new type called press button. So that's one action that you can take inside of our application. And let's say the data that we have in our application with the model is a singular integer. So let's say we have type model, which is just int. Okay. And now let's try and view our application. So Elm, it doesn't use HTML, but it has a domain-specific language inside of it for HTML. And in order to see anything on the web, we need to use HTML and probably some JavaScript. So we'll need to import HTML here. And let's start off with just basic hello world right now. So html.h1. And I'm going to put a list here and another list there. Now the h1 tag, what that does is pull up the Elm documentation. The h1 tag takes in two things. It takes in a list of HTML attributes with this thing called MSG and a list of HTML elements with this thing called MSG. Then that gives us in turn the type of HTML .html MSG. MSG in this case you can think of as actions, and when the HTML type accepts a new type MSG, it's saying that this HTML can output actions or messages of this type MSG. So for the most basic case, we're just going to put a simple HTML element in here, HTML text. And this just takes Elm string and returns that to an HTML. So hello world. Save all that. But we have our view. Now we need to figure out how we update that view. So update is a function that needs to take in a message or action in our case, a model, and it needs to return a model. So that's what that is. And our last function is init. How do we start off our data? And let's just say we're going to start off our data with 0. Delete, that's everything that we need. So you guys can see a little better. So now that we've put all of the things that we need for an Elm application inside of our main.elm file, let's see if that works. In order to compile your application, you need to run elm make. So elm space make, in the name of your file, source/main.elm. Still have some errors, it looks like. So it says our view, the Elm errors tell us that this argument is a record of type init, update, and view. And you can see the error, it has to do with our view because it's highlighted. And then the sandbox needs the first argument to be init that takes in a number, update that takes in this message one type and a number and gives back a number, and then view, which takes in a number and it gives back HTML stuff. So it looks like we just need to turn our view value into a view function by passing it some model. So if we save that and we go back down and we run elm make source/main.elm, we should see success. And we do. So if we wanted to actually look at our web application, there are a couple ways we could do that. Elm make produces a file, index.html. We could open index.html. Oh, look, hello world. Or there's another option of running it. It's running the Elm reactor. Now we can go to our web browser and go to localhost 8000 and we get access to the Elm reactor. Now here we can navigate through the files, click main.elm, and we get our application.
That is how you make Hello World in Elm. Give us a like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Coding Cave.